Okay, welcome. So we are going to present our research topic, which is leveraging machine translation for medical translations for Luganda. The author is my friend Eric Peter Wairagala, and then me, Wamozo Cosmas. So let's begin with the ML problem to be solved. We acknowledge there is an existing problem of communication barrier between patients and the clinicians, especially for under-resourced languages like Luganda in regions where the literacy index is low in Africa. So we propose a machine translation approach to bridging the gap for this particular problem. We acknowledge that for the background of the problem, currently most hospitals use human interpreters to translate these local languages to help in translating medical jargon to the common man, which has slowed down the efficiency of the doctors because the human interpreter is usually slow, and sometimes they also mislead the interactions, the conversations. They usually make a lot of mistakes. So most of the clinical jargon is heavily, it's hard to interpret for a local person, and hence reducing the quality of medical care given to the local people, because they can't understand what's being told to them by the clinician, in this case, the doctor or the nurse or the pharmacist. So they end up going home and they have not understood the problem. They have not understood the instructions given to them by the doctor, which has resulted in poor medical care in most regions due to miscommunication and language barrier. The significance of our project, we suggest we are going to bridge the communication gap between the medical personnel and the patients by providing medical translations for high-level medical jargon. Probably we are going to begin with simple medical prescriptions and instructions. And part of the project, we are going to create a diverse and inclusive data set for English to Luganda, but in the clinical context, we are going to identify the common terms and the common medical instructions so that we translate them to Luganda, as we are going to liaise with several domain experts to create a simple data set of like 100 instructions from different domain experts. The project also aims at coming up with an evaluation framework for validating not only the accuracy and correctness of the machine translation models, but also to validate them against ethics, issues of ethics and transparency and gender. We don't want to have cases of mistranslation, since health is a very sensitive field, and we'd like to avoid issues of harm and death due to mistranslations. For the ML scope, we are looking at harnessing the power of statistical machine translations and neural machine translations. And we want specifically to look at prescriptions and simple medical instructions for this project. Specifically that bit of medicine. For the statement of the problem, we look to build a medical machine translation model for African languages, with focus on Luganda, where we are going to build a simple data set for medical instructions and prescriptions. Then we also look to build evaluation standards and we used to build evaluation standards and performance benchmarks for MTs in healthcare, while using the current evaluation measures for MTs like the BLEU scores and others. We look to come up with a suitable way to evaluate the performance of these models. I'd like to welcome my group mate Eric Peter to proceed from there.
Thank you so much, Cosmas. So my name is Eric Victoria Gala, as Cosmas has mentioned. So in the research questions that we are working towards to achieve, we want to examine how complex it is to actually create the parallel corpus for the medical machine translation, and also to what extent do medical terms and abbreviations affect the machine translation models. Probably, maybe if someone is doing domain adaptation, would achieve the best quality translations in this case. How can we evaluate the practical applications of medical machine translation models? For example, we want to see if we try to build this model, at the end of the day, after building the model, we want to understand whether in the prescriptions, in the large volumes of programs, post-drug market surveillance, we want to see if our model can actually work in these domains or part of medical facilities. Then, so what measures can be used to evaluate the medical machine translation models against ethical, fairness, transparency issues, given the fact that the language that we are looking at is a language with gender neutral pronouns? What happens with gender? And in case, what happens with the model if it is working with sentences that are in Uganda, but they are gender neutral? What happens that side when you translate to a language that has gender specific pronouns? Next slide. The hypothesis, we look forward to improve the quality of the patient-clinician interactions by eliminating communication barrier disparities. And also this would help to make our local people understand more on the prescriptions that they are being given. So the aim of this is to actually reduce on the effects of misunderstanding of the prescriptions and drug instructions, which may lead to death at the end of the day. Then we want to improve the evaluation and performance standards of MTs in the healthcare with that will increase the uptake in the domain. And this will also take effect in the machine translation domain, which will help because given the fact that we are going to create a data set, create guidelines, we're creating a data set for the low Ugandan low source languages, so other researchers or other industries can actually take up this and also work with. Next slide. So the objective of this work is working alongside the experts, of course, to create a more diverse and inclusive data set with limited bias. So mitigating bias also is one of our things that we are going with, and also creating a data set for, of course, creating the data set for English parallel corpus, English to Uganda translation, focusing, actually taking into consideration the quality of the translations validated, and also ethical issues taken into consideration. Then also creating evaluation and performance standards for MT in healthcare, specifically for Uganda, and you all, it can be migrated to other Ugandan languages. Next slide. Then so the data set that we are actually experimenting with is an open source data set from the UFL Medical Corpus, which is actually available publicly, which has several languages. So we are using this data set as a motivation to actually create our own data set in the Ugandan local context, but using their guidelines at the end of the day, given the fact that they have the in-domain and the out-domain parallel corpora, with the in-domain comprising the medical corpora and also the out-domain, which is the general domain that actually helps in domain adaptation. So this data sources, of course, were obtained through medical web crawling and also open source, open subtitles for movies, from podcasts, and so on and so forth. But for us, we look forward to actually move forward and go in the field to get these prescriptions from our local people, local clinic health facilities, to be able to provide a data set that actually represents our country, Uganda. Next slide. So we propose a technique. Our first step, of course, is to recognize the suitable clinical prescriptions and instruction sentences, and this will help us to create the monolingual English corpus, which will be which will serve as our data, our source data set, and this will motivate the translations to the translations of translations into the Luganda language to create a parallel corpus. So the model training, we are looking forward to train statistical machine translations and also train the neural machine translation, the neural machine translations, which have actually a very good state of art performance. Then to evaluate the performance of the machine translation models, of course, we are going to use the bilingual bilingual encoding understudy, which is the BLEU score metric, more of the standard. And also we hope to build to work with the clinicians, linguistics, to actually build an evaluation framework for the MT in healthcare. And this will mean that we shall have the human evaluation at the end of the day after building the model on the test set. Next slide. So that's it. To summarize, this is the third part of our case study, and we are moving forward to closer to the concept document. Stay tuned to the next episode. Thank you so much.